The rain hammered against the streets of Oslo, Norway, like an unrelenting drumbeat, a chaotic symphony that drowned out everything except the sound of Peter Carraway's breathing. He pressed his back against the cold brick wall of the alley, his gloved hand steady on the pistol tucked in his jacket. His target loomed ahead, a discreet art gallery that doubled as a front for Paul Delvecchio's most lucrative smuggling operation. Peter wasn't here for the art. He wasn't here for the money either. He was here for revenge. He glanced at his watch. 2:47 a.m. The guards would be changing shifts in exactly 3 minutes, leaving a narrow window to slip through the side entrance. Peter had spent weeks studying their movements, hacking into security feeds, and bribing the right people. Every detail of this heist was etched into his mind like a map, but as he crept closer, something felt wrong. The air carried a stillness that didn't belong, like the moment before a thunderclap. Peter reached the door, his lockpick poised, but froze when he saw it. The door was ajar. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, but curiosity, that double-edged sword, urged him forward. He slipped inside, his footsteps silent on the polished floor. The gallery was dark, save for the faint glow of the emergency exit signs, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He moved toward the vault in the back, his pulse quickening. This was supposed to be the first domino, the hit that would set his plan in motion and bring Paul's empire crumbling down. But when he reached the vault, he stopped dead. It was open, not cracked, not tampered with. Wide open, the steel door swung out like an invitation. Peter's eyes darted around the room, his senses on high alert. He stepped closer, peering inside, and felt his stomach drop. The vault was empty, completely stripped. No cash, no contraband, nothing but a single object lying in the center of the floor. A playing card. The King of Spades. Peter picked it up, his hand trembling. Paul's signature. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. Peter shoved the card into his pocket and spun around, his mind racing. Had Paul known about his plan all along? Was this a trap? He moved swiftly back to the alley, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The rain was heavier now, masking every sound but his own shallow breathing. As Peter slipped into his getaway car, his phone buzzed. He hesitated before answering, glancing at the untraceable number on the screen. "Peter," a voice drawled on the other end. Paul's voice. "How long have you known?" Peter demanded, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Paul chuckled. "Since the moment you decided to come after me. You're predictable, Peter. You've always been predictable." Peter's jaw tightened. "You think this ends here?" "Oh, I know it doesn't," Paul said, his tone dripping with smug confidence. "But let's see how you handle playing on my board. Check your glove compartment." The line went dead. Peter's hand shook as he opened the compartment. Inside was a small envelope. He tore it open, revealing another card, the Ace of Spades, and a note scrawled in elegant handwriting. "Round 1 goes to me. Let's see if you make it to round 2. Peter slammed the envelope down, his mind spiraling. Paul had turned the game against him before it even began. But Peter wasn't one to quit. If Paul wanted to play, then Peter would make sure the next move hurt. The next day, Peter hit one of Paul's warehouses. This time, there were guards, but they didn't put up a fight. Instead, they surrendered immediately, leaving behind another King of Spades. Each step Peter took seemed orchestrated by Paul, as if he were guiding him into some grand trap. By the time Peter reached Paul's penthouse, the supposed endgame, he didn't know if he was the hunter or the hunted. The suite was immaculate, every piece of furniture placed with precision. Paul sat in the center, holding a glass of whiskey, his smirk as sharp as a blade. "You've done well to get this far," Paul said, leaning back. "But tell me, Peter, do you really think you're the one pulling the strings here?" Peter leveled his gun at Paul, his finger steady on the trigger. "This ends now." Paul raised an eyebrow, his smirk unfaltering. "Does it? Or is this just another move in the game?" Before Peter could react, the lights cut out. A scuffle ensued, with shadows and flashes of movement disorienting him. By the time the lights flickered back on, Paul was gone, and Peter was left holding yet another card, the Joker. Peter clenched his fists, his heart pounding. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Paul had made one mistake. He'd underestimated just how far Peter was willing to go. As the storm raged outside, Peter vowed to play the game to its bitter end, and this time the stakes would be higher than either of them could imagine. The Joker card trembled in Peter's hand as he stared at it, the implications gnawing at the edges of his sanity. Paul wasn't just playing games, he was taunting Peter, pulling him deeper into a labyrinth where the walls shifted with every step. Peter shoved the card into his pocket, scanning the penthouse for anything Paul might have left behind. The room was immaculate, too perfect. But perfection, Peter knew, was a mask. Then he saw it. A faint reflection shimmered against the glass of a framed painting, a tiny red dot blinking in the corner, a hidden camera. Peter smirked. Gotcha. With a quick rip of the frame, he uncovered the surveillance device. It was high-tech, encrypted, but Peter had spent years mastering the art of cracking systems. He slipped the device into his pocket and made his way out before Paul's men could show up. The underground puzzle. Back in his safe house, Peter connected the camera to his laptop. As the screen flickered to life, he was greeted by live feeds from multiple locations: a warehouse, an abandoned subway station, and a luxury yacht. Each feed showed people moving, Paul's men, shipments being loaded, and encrypted monitors with unreadable data streams. Peter leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. This wasn't just Paul's empire, it was the blueprint. But one feed caught his attention. It was a dimly lit room, the walls lined with monitors, and in the center was a man tied to a chair. His head lolled forward, blood dripping from his temple. Peter's stomach clenched. It was Marcus, his old partner, the only person Peter trusted in this world. Paul's voice crackled through the feed. "You're watching, aren't you, Peter? I thought you might enjoy seeing what happens when people bet against me. Marcus here thought he could help you. Turns out, loyalty is overrated." Peter's jaw tightened as he watched Paul step into frame, holding a knife. "Come and get him, Slick. If you're fast enough, he might even survive." The feed cut off. Peter sat frozen for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had two options: walk away and let Marcus pay the price for his war with Paul, or step into the trap Paul had laid out for him. He didn't have to think long. Peter geared up, his mind racing through contingencies. He knew the risks. Paul wouldn't make this easy. This was a battlefield designed to break him. But Peter had spent years in this life. He knew how to turn traps into opportunities. The subway station was silent when Peter arrived, the air thick with the metallic scent of damp concrete and rust. He moved cautiously, his footsteps echoing softly. Ahead, a faint glow illuminated the corridor. As Peter approached, he found himself standing before an empty train car, its doors open like a gaping mouth. On the floor, another playing card waited for him, the Queen of Spades, taped to a note. "End of the line, Peter. All aboard." Peter stepped inside, his senses on high alert. The doors slammed shut behind him, and the train lurched into motion. Lights flickered overhead as the train barreled into the darkness, the windows showing only flashes of graffiti-covered walls. Then, the intercom crackled. "How's the ride, Slick?" Paul's voice filled the car. "I'm impressed you've made it this far. But here's the thing, you can't beat me. You're a thief, a con man, a ghost. And me? I'm the guy who owns the city. What do you think happens when a ghost tries to fight a king?" Peter ignored the taunts, searching the ajar. He crouched down, pried it open with his knife, and found a small black box inside. A timer blinked on its screen. Nalda 5, a bomb. Peter's pulse quickened as he assessed the device. Paul's trap wasn't just psychological, it was lethal. He'd turned the subway car into a coffin on wheels. The intercom crackled again. "Tick-tock, Peter. You've always been good at solving puzzles. Let's see if you're as good under pressure." Peter gritted his teeth, forcing his mind to focus. He had 5 minutes, maybe less. Years of experience dismantling security systems and cracking safes had honed his skills, but this was different. Bombs weren't his specialty. He grabbed a flashlight from his pocket and examined the device. Wires, lots of them. Red, blue, yellow, green. Which one? He searched for any signs. A loose connection, a label. anything that would give him an edge. His fingers hovered over the red wire when a sharp, metallic clunk echoed through the car. Peter whipped around to see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway between cars. The figure was tall, cloaked in black, and holding a gun trained directly on Peter. "Step away from the bomb," the man ordered, his voice cold and unflinching. Peter raised his hands slowly. "Let me guess. Paul sent you to make sure I don't make it out alive?" The man didn't answer, but his finger tightened on the trigger. Peter's mind raced. He was outgunned and out of time. He glanced at the timer, stir 3:47. "I hope Paul's paying you well," Peter said, stalling. "Because you won't get another dime if this thing goes off and takes us both out." The man hesitated, his aim faltering for a fraction of a second. It was all Peter needed. With a swift motion, Peter grabbed the nearest fire extinguisher and hurled it at the man. The extinguisher slammed into his chest, sending him stumbling back. Peter lunged forward, disarming him with a brutal twist and pinning him against the wall. "Who are you working for?" Peter growled. The man smirked, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "You think you're in control, but you're just another pawn. You'll never beat him." Before Peter could respond, the man pulled a blade from his belt and slashed at him, narrowly missing his throat. Peter countered, striking the man hard enough to knock him unconscious. With no time to waste, Peter returned to the bomb. He took a deep breath, trusting his instincts, and cut the red wire. The timer stopped at 12. Relief washed over him, but only for a moment. The train screeched to a halt, throwing him off balance. The doors hissed open, revealing a dimly lit platform ahead. Peter stepped off, his senses on high alert. The platform was empty, save for a single spotlight illuminating Marcus, still tied to the chair. His head hung low, his breathing shallow. "Marcus!" Peter ran to his friend, cutting the ropes and pulling him upright. Marcus groaned, his eyes fluttering open. "Pete, you shouldn't have come. It's a trap." "I know," Peter said, glancing around. "But I'm not leaving you." A slow clap echoed through the station. Peter turned to see Paul emerging from the shadows, flanked by armed men. "Touching," Paul said, his voice dripping with mockery. "But predictable. You always let your emotions get in the way, Slick." Peter stepped in front of Marcus, his jaw clenched. "Let him go. This is between you and me," Paul chuckled. "Oh, it's always been between us. But where's the fun in a simple game of chess? I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything, just like you tried to take from me." Peter's mind raced as Paul's men raised their weapons. There had to be a way out, a weak spot, a distraction, anything. He tightened his grip on Marcus, ready to fight tooth and nail. "Any last words?" Paul asked, his smirk widening. Peter smirked back. "Yeah, don't turn your back on a ghost." At that moment, the train roared back to life behind them, its horn blaring as it barreled down the track. Peter had triggered it remotely, using the black box he'd taken from the bomb. The sudden noise startled Paul's men, giving Peter the opening he needed. He grabbed Marcus and dove for cover as the train smashed into the platform, sending debris flying. Chaos erupted. Peter seized the opportunity, dragging Marcus toward an emergency exit. Bullets ricocheted around them, but Peter didn't stop until they were outside, the cold night air hitting their faces. As they stumbled into the shadows, Marcus coughed and looked at Peter. "You really think you can take him down?" Peter's eyes burned with determination. "I don't think. I know." This wasn't over. Paul had set the rules, but Peter was about to break every single one of them. And when the dust settled, there would be only one man left standing. Peter and Marcus disappeared into the maze of back alleys, each step carrying them further from the chaos they'd just escaped. The distant sound of sirens grew louder, mixing with the city's ever-present hum. They ducked into an abandoned warehouse, the air thick with the stench of mildew and rust. Marcus collapsed onto a dusty crate, groaning as he clutched his side. Blood seeped through his shirt, a souvenir from Paul's men. "Let me see," Peter demanded, crouching next to him. "I'm fine," Marcus muttered, wincing as Peter peeled the fabric away to reveal a deep gash. "You're not fine." Peter grabbed a med kit from a hidden stash under a loose floorboard. He worked quickly, his hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. As he cleaned and bandaged the wound, Marcus stared at him, his face pale but defiant. "You should have left me. Paul wanted you to come for me. He knew you couldn't resist." Peter didn't look up. "You'd do the same for me." "That's not the point. He's playing you, Pete. Every move you make, he's already planned 5 steps ahead." Peter's jaw tightened. "Then I'll make him trip over his own damn plan." Marcus shook his head, a flicker of frustration crossing his face. "You don't get it, do you? Paul's not just another kingpin. He's built something bigger, something we can't dismantle by just robbing a few vaults or burning a few warehouses." Peter finished wrapping the bandage and sat back, his mind churning. Marcus was right. Paul's empire wasn't just physical, it was a network of influence, blackmail, and fear. "How do we hit something that big?" Peter asked, his voice quieter now. Marcus hesitated before pulling a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "This." Peter unfolded it, his eyes narrowing at the list of names scrawled across the page. Politicians, corporate executives, police captains, all people Peter recognized. "This is his power," Marcus said, his voice grim. "Every one of these people owes Paul something. Favors, money, secrets. If we take this network down, we take him down." Peter studied the list, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Where'd you get this?" Marcus gave a faint smirk. "I've been doing my own digging while you've been making noise. Turns out Paul's arrogance makes him sloppy sometimes. He doesn't think anyone can touch him." Peter's lips curled into a cold smile. "Then let's show him how wrong he is." The new plan. Over the next few days, Peter and Marcus worked in the shadows, piecing together a strategy. The goal wasn't just to dismantle Paul's empire, it was to make it implode from within. Step 1. Sow discord among Paul's allies. They began leaking carefully curated pieces of information to the press and rival gangs, planting seeds of doubt and betrayal. Peter knew that loyalty in Paul's world was paper thin. Step 2. Sabotage his operations. They hit supply routes, disrupted shipments, and hacked into Paul's communication networks. Every attack was surgical, designed to make it look like Paul's own people were turning against him. Step 3. Target the key players. Peter and Marcus began systematically exposing the secrets of the names on the list, turning Paul's allies into liabilities. But Paul wasn't sitting idly by. The counter. It started with a phone call. Peter was in the middle of hacking into one of Paul's offshore accounts when his burner phone buzzed. "Hello, Slick." Paul's voice greeted him, calm and smug as ever. Peter didn't respond, his fingers pausing over the keyboard. "You've been busy," Paul continued. "I have to admit, I'm impressed. Most people crumble when I put the pressure on. But you've turned this into a full-blown war." Peter leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "War's just another word for opportunity." Paul chuckled. "Oh, I agree, and I think it's time we raise the stakes." The line went dead. Before Peter could process the conversation, an explosion shook the building. The blast knocked him out of his chair, debris raining down as fire consumed the room. "Marcus!" Peter shouted, coughing as he scrambled to his feet. He found Marcus in the next room, pulling himself out from under a fallen beam. "Paul!" Marcus spat, his face smeared with soot. Peter helped him up, his mind already formulating their next move. "He's trying to flush us out. We need to move, now." The final gambit. Paul's counterattack escalated the game, but Peter wasn't backing down. If anything, it pushed him closer to the edge, a place he thrived. The final step of their plan was risky, bordering on suicidal. They were going to infiltrate Paul's inner sanctum, his true base of operations, a high-rise skyscraper disguised as a legitimate financial firm. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked as they geared up. Peter adjusted his bulletproof vest, his expression grim but resolute. "He started this. We're finishing it." Under the cover of night, they slipped into the building, bypassing security systems with ease. The higher they climbed, the more the tension mounted. By the time they reached Paul's office, Peter's heart was pounding. He kicked the door open, his gun raised, only to find Paul sitting calmly behind his desk, a glass of whiskey in hand. "Welcome, gentlemen," Paul said, smiling. "I've been expecting you." Peter and Marcus froze as the lights flickered on, revealing a dozen armed men surrounding them. Paul stood, his smirk widening. "You've been a worthy opponent, Slick, but this is checkmate." Peter's eyes darted around the room, searching for an opening. He felt Marcus tense beside him, ready for a fight. Then Peter smiled. "Funny thing about chess, Paul, sometimes the pawn takes the king." At that moment, the building's power cut out. The emergency lights flickered, plunging the room into chaos as Peter's final contingency plan unfolded. This wasn't over, not yet.